You might think this is what science sounds like. But here on the
BBC World Service, it's a bit more like this. Do you want to know why we dream?
This is a pretty cool radio. It's a 70-year-old radio, and of course I'm in my dad's 70-year-old workshop. What you see behind me, these are all hand tools, and this is where I tinker, making a few projects. What's fascinating about this radio, that the components inside are these analog devices known as vacuum tubes. Now, a vacuum tube is essentially a vacuum sealed by a piece of glass, and it has two elements. One is a cathode and one is an anode. And as the cathode element is heated up, the cathode is made of metal. And as it's heated up, the electrons escape the surface of the metal and it flows through the vacuum towards the positively charged anode. Now, most of these devices are used as amplifier devices. They're commonly referred to not diodes, but triodes. And the reason they're known as triodes is there's a third element besides the cathode and the positively charged anode, and it's known as the grid. And you can think of the grid as essentially a electrical mesh that's placed between the cathode and the anode. And as the electrons make its way from the cathode towards the anode, this grid controls or throttles the flow of electrons. So these devices were developed in the early 1900s as a way for us to amplify very, very weak electrical signals. And of course, that's what happens inside this radio. What's really fascinating about the radio, the technology inside there. Today we have these devices, portable display devices, which allows us to watch TV. But before the age of TV, this is what people had available. And so they would use this to tune into radio broadcasts from all over the world. And the programming typically consisted of a variety of elements, as you can imagine, for entertainment, music, comedy, radio shows, news, and documentaries. And this device, for example, used to be the radio that provides the audio entertainment in the form of music or comedy or whatever in the households. And this is before TV. So what's really cool about this setup is even in today's day and age, where I can receive information, whether it's TV or radio or news information, to my device that looks like this via the internet, I can also use this device to receive almost the same information in real time with electronic components inside that are analog like this. So they came in different sizes, mainly used for the purpose of amplification, signal amplification. And of course, what goes on in a radio, there's a lot of amplification that needs to happen because the antenna, that's a little piece of wire that's out in the atmosphere. It's so minute, nobody can do anything with it. It's not usable. So that tiny signal has to be amplified. And inside of this radio, it's amplified using valves or vacuum tubes like this. Of course, we have electronic devices today. They look like this. They're either tablets or telephones or television sets. And the electronics, or the principle upon which the electronics inside of this is built, is exactly the same, believe it or not. Amplify signals, make the current flow in one direction and not the other direction, and so on and so forth. So sometimes you'll hear that a device is a 2 million transistor device, or the CPU that's inside of here. The CPU is just made up of millions of transistors. And in today's technology, in digital technology, transistors are used for switching signals on and off, switching currents on and off, and that's how decisions get made. And we can go into digital design and computer design, but it's a whole different YouTube video or 10,000. Anyway, so this radio used to be in the 40s and 50s, used to be the centerpiece of entertainment in the homes, and people would have a radio like this sitting in their dining room or their living room, and they would gather any time of day, and this would be the source of entertainment, music, news, comedy, radio shows, talk shows, whatever, before TV. Now, what's pretty cool about this radio today is the fact that it still functions, and it still functions in the application of picking out intelligible information out of thin air, out of a piece of wire. This is my antenna wire. I don't know if you guys can see, but it's a thin piece of wire that's strung into thin air. It's about 20 feet long, and I am able to receive signals or intelligence in the form of radio signals from all around the world. Now, what I'm going to try and do is tune into the Voice of America to see if we can catch up on today's news. And again, of course, we have internet. I can do it on YouTube. I can do it on social media, or whatever the digital source of information. I can do it instantly here. I can also get it instantly using a device like that. And the fun thing is, I don't need internet for this. This is totally off-grid. The signal originates in the United States, gets rebroadcast perhaps out of a relay station in Europe, but I can tune into the news live out of the USA, which is on the other side of the world from where I am right now. So let's see if I can find the Voice of America.
Maaaring isa na rito ang coronavirus.
As you can hear the station fade in and out, and it's a function of the atmospheric conditions and how the signals are propagated around the world. The signals are actually bounce off of the Earth's surface, and then it bounces up to the ionosphere a few hundred kilometers, and it bounces back again. So it goes back and forth, and because there's fading in the reflection of these signals, I'm receiving it on the other side as a fading effect.
It's ready to download on the VOA1.
This is VOA News. The investigation into an engine
of Denver, Colorado over the weekend. Meanwhile, U.S. regulators ordered United Airlines to step up inspections of those aircraft. United said Sunday it is temporarily removing the aircraft from service a day after one of its planes made an emergency landing. The plane's right engine blew apart just after takeoff.
So there you have it. Solid state, analog. Yeah, we get the same information, maybe in a different format, but it's pretty amazing that these two devices essentially can perform the same duty. And this one is 70, 80, almost 90 years old, and this one is a few years old.
Évidemment, tous ensemble, en tout cas avec cette nomination, le président Tshisekedi démontre.
Otomawa, nothing. Globe 0917 0917.
Je compte chercher et voler, c'est pas bon.